It's 10:01 p.m. in a perfectly quiet Swiss apartment building. The halls are silent, the mountains outside are asleep, and suddenly you remember you need to flush the toilet. But guess what? You might be breaking the law. In some parts of Switzerland, especially in older apartment buildings with extremely thin walls, flushing your toilet after 10 p.m. can actually be illegal. This strange rule comes from Switzerland's obsession with one thing: peaceful, uninterrupted silence. The country prides itself on being one of the cleanest, calmest, and most organized places in the world, and that includes noise. The idea behind the law is simple. Old Swiss buildings echo like crazy. A single flush can sound like a waterfall crashing through the entire building. So, decades ago, local housing regulations were created to guarantee quiet hours from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. During that time, loud activities like vacuuming, hammering, or running loud appliances are forbidden, and in some buildings, that includes flushing. Now, is a police officer going to bust down your door at midnight because you flushed after eating too much fondue? No, it's usually enforced by landlords and building rules rather than police, but ignoring it can lead to fines, warnings, or angry neighbors who take quiet time more seriously than their morning coffee. The funniest part, modern buildings today are much better soundproofed, so the rule is rarely applied anymore, but it technically still exists in certain places, making it one of the most politely weird laws on Earth. So if you're in Switzerland at night, maybe think twice before hitting that flush handle, or flush at your own risk.
Picture walking through one of the cleanest cities on Earth. Spotless sidewalks, sparkling subway floors, zero graffiti, zero mess. Now imagine someone suddenly pulls out a pack of chewing gum. In Singapore, that tiny gesture can turn into a legal problem. Back in the early 1990s, the Singapore government faced a bizarre but very real issue. People kept sticking used chewing gum everywhere, on sidewalks, under benches, on elevator buttons, and worst of all, on the sensors of brand new subway train doors. Those doors cost millions, and every time someone jammed a wad of gum into them, entire train lines would shut down. The city had had enough. So, in 1992, Singapore passed one of the strictest cleanliness laws in modern history, a near total ban on selling chewing gum. Not eating it, not possessing it, just selling it to stop the mess at the source. For decades, if you brought gum into the country, customs officers could confiscate it. If you sold gum illegally, you faced heavy fines and in some extreme cases, even jail time. Singapore wasn't playing. But here's the twist. The ban wasn't created because gum is dangerous, it was because gum was too sticky, too annoying, and too capable of destroying expensive city infrastructure. Eventually, the rule softened. Today, you can buy certain kinds of gum in Singapore, but only if it's medicinal or therapeutic, like nicotine gum or dental gum. And you can only get it with a doctor's approval or from a pharmacy that records your purchase. You still won't find regular chewing gum in stores. And local law enforcement still treats the streets like sacred territory. Spit gum on a train platform? Huge fine. Leave gum on a table? Huge fine. Singapore's message is clear. If it sticks, we ban it. So yes, a simple piece of chewing gum became one of the most tightly controlled items in the entire country, all because people couldn't resist sticking it where it didn't belong.
Imagine a country where your annual checkup doesn't just measure your health, it measures your legality. Well, welcome to Japan, home of the Metabo law, one of the most misunderstood health regulations in the world. In 2008, Japan introduced a national law to fight rising rates of lifestyle-related diseases like diabetes and heart problems. Their solution was bold, surprising, and very, very Japanese. They set an official maximum waistline size for adults. For men over 40, it's 85 centimeters. For women over 40, it's 90 centimeters. If your waist measurement goes above that, you don't get arrested and you don't pay a fine, but your company or local government might.
Here's how it works. Every year, millions of Japanese citizens get mandatory health checkups. During these exams, doctors literally measure your waist with a tape measure. If too many people from the same company or region exceed the limit, that organization must pay higher health premiums and create special health improvement plans for employees. It's not about punishing individuals, it's about pushing entire communities to stay healthy together. But the media outside Japan twisted it into a meme, saying Japan made being fat illegal. Not true. Nobody goes to jail for being overweight. The law is more like a national fitness nudge, a cultural reminder that personal health has public consequences. And the craziest part? It worked! After the Metabo law was introduced, Japan's national obesity rates stayed incredibly low compared to most developed countries. Companies began offering free fitness classes, healthy lunches, and even waistline contests. So even though it sounds like the plot of a dystopian anime, the Metabo law is really just Japan doing what Japan does best, using structure, discipline, and national teamwork to keep everyone healthier. A tape measure as a legal tool, only in Japan.
You're in Canada, walking near a royal ceremony. You see the Queen, calm, elegant, waving politely. Now imagine you decide to jump out from behind a tree and yell "boo" at her. Congratulations, you've just committed a crime. Yes, Canada has an old law, still technically valid, that makes it illegal to frighten, alarm, or intentionally disturb the Queen. It comes straight from the Canadian Criminal Code and dates back to a time when the monarchy played a much more hands-on role. Back then, scaring the Queen wasn't just rude, it was seen as an attack on the state itself. This law belongs to the same category as assaulting a monarch, but the wording is so specific and so bizarre that it practically sounds like a joke. It bans any act with intent to alarm Her Majesty. In simple terms, if you try to prank the Queen, jump at her, stalk her, chase her, or even startle her on purpose, you could be arrested and charged with a serious offense. Historically, that meant long prison sentences. Today, you'd probably face fines and a very angry team of security agents. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Even though Canada is geographically huge and the Queen, Elizabeth II, before her passing, rarely visited, the law remained untouched. It wasn't removed when other outdated laws were cleaned up. Why? Because anything involving the monarchy is treated with extreme respect and caution. Tradition matters, and Canada loves its traditions. Technically, the law still applies to King Charles III because the wording covers Her Majesty, His Majesty, or the Monarch of Canada. So, the next time you see a Canadian royal event, remember, don't shout, don't jump out, don't prank, and definitely don't try to scare the king. In Canada, startling royalty isn't just disrespectful, it's a crime.
A quaint French village, cobblestone streets, the aroma of fresh baguettes in the air, and a farmer lovingly naming his prized pig Napoleon. Sounds innocent, right? Wrong. In France, that's illegal. The law comes from a mixture of history, respect, and pure national pride. Napoleon Bonaparte is considered one of France's most iconic figures, the general, emperor, and symbol of French power. Using his name for a pig, no matter how cute or clever, is seen as insulting the memory of the emperor. It's part of a larger French legal tradition that protects the reputation of national heroes. Back in the day, this wasn't a funny rule, it was serious. Citizens could actually face fines for publicly mocking Napoleon in ways deemed offensive, and naming an animal after him was included. Why a pig specifically? Well, pigs have historically been used in literature and satire to represent messiness or stupidity. Associating Napoleon with a pig was considered an act of ridicule, and the government wanted to prevent disrespect toward France's iconic leader. Even today, the law technically exists, though enforcement is rare. Most people wouldn't risk it because the French take history and cultural respect very seriously. So, next time you see a cute little piglet, resist the temptation to call it Napoleon. In France, it's not just cheeky, it's illegal. A pig named Napoleon? That's not just wrong, it's criminal.
Imagine stepping onto the marble floors of the Parthenon or wandering through centuries-old temples, your stylish high heels clicking against ancient stone. Sounds glamorous, right? Wrong. In Greece, high heels are banned at most ancient ruins. This unusual law exists for one simple reason: preservation. Ancient Greek monuments are thousands of years old, and the floors are often uneven, fragile, or made of soft stone that can easily chip or crack. A stiletto heel hitting these stones can cause damage that lasts forever. One careless step could ruin a piece of history. But it's not just about the stones, it's also about safety. Walking in high heels on uneven ruins is dangerous, and visitors have been known to twist ankles or fall, creating liability issues for the sites. So the Greek government and local authorities put their foot down, literally. Signs at sites like the Acropolis warn tourists, no high heels allowed. And it's not just a suggestion. Guards at entrances sometimes check shoes and politely ask visitors to swap heels for flats or comfortable footwear. Fashion may take a hit, but history wins. In Greece, glamour has to step aside from millennia of culture, because one snap of a heel could cost the world an irreplaceable piece of its past. High heels? Beautiful. Ancient ruins? Priceless. Heels on ruins? Absolutely forbidden.
Imagine walking down a busy street in Bangkok and a coin rolls out of your pocket. You step on it by accident. In most countries, no one would blink. But in Thailand, you might be committing a crime. In Thailand, stepping on money is illegal, and there's a very important reason behind this rule. Every Thai banknote and coin carries the image of the king. And the king? He is sacred. He's more than just a ruler. He's a symbol of the nation, revered almost like a living deity. The law says that any act that disrespects the monarchy is a serious offense, and this includes stepping on, defacing, or burning money. Even accidentally dropping a bill and putting your foot on it can be considered disrespectful. Breaking this law can have severe consequences. Thailand has strict lèse-majesté laws, which can include heavy fines, imprisonment, or even both. And it doesn't matter if it was intentional or not. The law is very strict when it comes to anything involving the king. Tourists are often warned in guidebooks, be careful when handling money, don't put it on the floor, and never use it in a way that could appear disrespectful. Even folding it into creative origami? Risky. So in Thailand, money isn't just currency, it's a symbol of national pride and respect. Step on it, and you're not just stepping on paper or metal, you're stepping on the king himself. A tiny step for your foot could be a giant mistake in Thai law.
Picture yourself in Venice. The sun glistening on the canals, gondolas gliding gently through the water, and dozens of pigeons swooping down for your breadcrumbs. It sounds like a charming postcard moment, right? Wrong. In Venice, feeding pigeons is illegal, and breaking this rule can cost you. The law was introduced to protect the city's historic architecture. Pigeon droppings are acidic and can eat away at centuries-old buildings, statues, and monuments, causing damage that costs millions to repair. Venice is famous for its fragile beauty,
and city officials are determined to preserve it. There's more. Pigeons in Venice are aggressive. Tourists feeding them create swarms that can be a nuisance or even dangerous. And the droppings aren't just harmful to buildings, they're unhygienic for humans too. The penalties are strict. Fines can range from 50 to 500 euros, depending on how flagrantly you break the law. Tourists caught tossing breadcrumbs into St. Mark's Square may be scolded by police or even handed a ticket on the spot. Some clever Venetians have tried workarounds, like feeding the pigeons outside the main squares, but the city has made it clear, no feeding in protected areas. Preservation comes first. So next time you dream of feeding a flock of pigeons in Venice, remember, your hands might be full of breadcrumbs, but your wallet could be full of fines. In Venice, beauty comes with rules, and pigeons don't get special treatment.
You are wandering through the majestic halls of the UK Parliament, the home of centuries of laws, debates, and history, and suddenly you collapse. Here's the shocking part. In the United Kingdom, dying in Parliament is technically illegal. Yes, you heard that right. It's one of the strangest laws in Britain, and it's more about legal quirks and historical privilege than about enforcing mortality. The law dates back to a time when the Palace of Westminster, where Parliament meets, was considered royal property. Anyone who died on royal grounds could, in theory, trigger complex legal and financial consequences, especially around taxes, inheritances, and state responsibility. Over time, the idea evolved into this rule that dying in Parliament is illegal. Of course, no one is actually prosecuted for kicking the bucket in the House of Commons. It's not a crime you'll serve jail time for. But it has sparked endless jokes and legends. People say it's illegal to die there because you would then be entitled to a state funeral, or the authorities would be forced to deal with paperwork for a deceased lawmaker on royal property. It's a law that exists mostly on paper, a quirky reminder of Britain's love for tradition, privilege, and odd legal technicalities. So, next time you visit the UK Parliament, remember, you can admire the historic halls, you can take photos, but maybe don't plan your exit there. After all, in Britain, even death has rules.
Imagine attending a beautiful wedding in Australia. Flowers are blooming, music is playing, everyone is smiling, and suddenly someone storms in, shouting, ringing a bell, or throwing confetti at the wrong moment. In Australia, that's not just rude, it's illegal. Across multiple states, there are laws protecting the peace and solemnity of weddings and funerals. These laws make it a crime to intentionally disrupt, disturb, or interfere with the ceremony. Whether it's yelling, playing loud music, or even blocking the entrance, the law takes it seriously. Why? Because weddings and funerals are private, emotional, and important events. Interfering with them can cause emotional distress, safety hazards, or even escalate into violence. The law ensures that these moments remain respectful and protected. Penalties can include fines or even jail time, depending on the severity of the disruption. And it's not just about random acts. Anyone who plans a disruption, like a prankster or protester, can be prosecuted. The law covers both outdoor and indoor ceremonies, and it applies to public spaces too. That means if you try to stage a protest outside a wedding chapel or interrupt a funeral procession in the street, you're breaking the law. So in Australia, if you ever attend a wedding or a funeral, remember this golden rule. Keep calm, stay respectful, and never, ever disrupt the ceremony. Because in Australia, messing with someone's big day or final goodbye isn't just bad manners, it's a crime.
You're cruising down the legendary German Autobahn at top speed,
No speed limits, the wind in your hair, the engine roaring, and suddenly your car sputters to a stop. You've run out of gas. In most countries, that's just an inconvenience, but in Germany, it's technically illegal. On the Autobahn, running out of fuel is considered avoidable negligence. The law assumes that drivers are responsible for their vehicle and should always ensure they have enough fuel before entering high-speed highways. Stopping due to empty tanks is seen as creating an unnecessary safety hazard for everyone on the road. Why so strict? The Autobahn isn't just any highway, it's a place where cars travel at extreme speeds. A stationary vehicle can cause massive accidents, endangering not just the driver, but dozens of other motorists. Even a momentary stop in the wrong lane can trigger catastrophic chain reactions. If you run out of gas on the Autobahn, police can fine you for negligent driving, and if your vehicle causes an accident, the consequences can escalate to civil liability or criminal charges. The law isn't meant to punish fuel forgetfulness, it's about safety and responsibility. German authorities expect drivers to plan ahead, check fuel levels, and be prepared for long stretches between service stations. So, next time you hit the Autobahn, remember, full tank, full focus, full speed. Running out of gas? That's not just inconvenient in Germany, it's against the law.
Imagine a night out in South Korea. The neon lights glow, friends gather, and everyone heads to a noraebang. That's a private karaoke room, ready to belt out their favorite hits. But here's a twist you might not expect. In South Korea, karaoke has a noise curfew. In many cities, local laws regulate how late you can make noise in residential or mixed-use areas. That means your loud, off-key rendition of Bohemian Rhapsody can actually break the law if it continues past a certain hour, usually 10 or 11 p.m. These regulations aren't meant to ruin fun. They exist to protect residents from sleepless nights and noise pollution. South Korea is densely populated, and apartment buildings share walls. Even a karaoke microphone can carry sound through dozens of units, disturbing neighbors. Violating the curfew can result in fines, warnings, or even closure of the karaoke business if the noise complaints are repeated. Business owners often install soundproofing, but the rules still apply, and guests are expected to follow them. It's a strange mix of fun and responsibility. South Korea loves karaoke, but it also values peaceful sleep. Your vocal dreams don't give you the right to disturb your neighbors. So if you're planning a late-night karaoke session in Seoul, remember, sing your heart out, but not past curfew. In South Korea, the law doesn't just police behavior, it polices your decibels.
Imagine walking through the streets of Malaysia wearing a bright yellow shirt and suddenly realizing that what you're wearing could get you into serious trouble. That's exactly what happened during a turbulent period in Malaysian history. In 2011, yellow became a political symbol. It was the color of the Bersih movement, a group demanding clean and fair elections. The government, viewing the color as a symbol of protest and potential unrest, banned the wearing of yellow clothing in certain areas and at specific events. The ban wasn't about fashion, it was about control and symbolism. Authorities argued that wearing yellow could incite political demonstrations, disturb public order, or be seen as defiance against the government. People caught wearing yellow risked police attention, fines, or even arrest during protests. Interestingly, this law didn't apply to ordinary daily life in every context. Walking around in a yellow shirt at home was fine, but public gatherings, marches, or rallies were heavily monitored. Yellow suddenly became more than just a color. It became a statement. This unusual restriction shows how even something as simple as a t-shirt color can take on legal and political significance depending on the context. So next time you wear yellow, remember, in Malaysia,
history once made it more than just a fashion choice. It was potentially illegal. Bright, cheerful, and historically rebellious.
Picture a sunny Arizona afternoon. Cacti sway in the breeze, desert dust rises, and somehow a donkey is snoozing in your bathtub. Sounds ridiculous, right? But in Arizona, this scenario is actually the reason behind a real law. It's illegal to let donkeys sleep in bathtubs. The story goes back to the 1920s. A rancher had a donkey named Old Nellie who loved to nap in her bathtub. One day, a sudden flood hit the area, and the donkey, trapped in the tub, was swept away. Fortunately, Old Nellie survived, but the incident caused enough concern that the state created a law to prevent donkeys from being put in bathtubs or other dangerous containers. The law is less about donkeys' sleeping habits and more about public safety and animal welfare. Bathtubs aren't designed for large animals, and floods, accidents, or structural damage could happen again. So in Arizona, remember, donkeys belong in the pasture, not in your porcelain bathtub. It's a law that's equal parts safety precaution and local legend, proving once and for all that reality is sometimes stranger than fiction.
A sunny Florida beach, waves crashing, and a crowd gathered for a lively performance. You step up, microphone in hand, ready to sing. In your swimsuit. Sounds like a fun beach show, right? Not in Florida, because singing while wearing a swimsuit is illegal in some areas. This strange law dates back decades and was originally designed to maintain public decency and morality. The idea was that performing in swimsuit could be considered indecent exposure or inappropriate entertainment for mixed audiences. Local authorities wanted to prevent performances that could distract or offend the public, especially in spaces like public beaches, pools, or bathhouses. Violating the law could technically lead to fines or legal trouble, though enforcement is extremely rare today. Most people probably aren't even aware it exists, which makes it one of the weirdest hidden laws in the United States. Some speculate the law was also a response to early beachside entertainment in the mid-20th century when swimsuits were far more revealing than the norms of the time. Lawmakers wanted to keep public performances family-friendly, and banning singing in swimsuit was their quirky solution. So, in Florida, if you're planning a beach concert, remember, your voice is free, but your swimsuit may have limits. It's a law that sounds absurd, but it's a real reminder of how seriously Florida once took morality on the sand.
Imagine walking into a Sunday service in Alabama, feeling festive, and deciding to wear a fake mustache for fun. Sounds harmless, right? Not in Alabama, because there's a law that makes it illegal to wear a fake mustache in church if it causes laughter. This bizarre rule was likely created to maintain order and reverence during religious services. Church was considered a sacred place, and any behavior that could disrupt worship, including funny costumes, pranks, or disguises, was frowned upon. A fake mustache might seem silly, but if it made people laugh, it was seen as disturbing the peace. The law is very specific. It doesn't ban mustaches themselves, and it doesn't stop people from wearing costumes elsewhere. It only applies to church settings where laughter could distract worshipers or insult the sanctity of the service. Today, the law is mostly a historical curiosity. Enforcement is extremely rare, and it's often cited in lists of America's weirdest laws. But technically, if someone wore a fake mustache and caused laughter in church, they could be fined. So in Alabama, remember, some jokes are just too sacred, especially inside a house of worship. Fake mustaches? Fun elsewhere. Fake mustaches in church? Legally risky.
Imagine walking through a quiet California town, palm trees swaying, kids playing in the park, and somewhere, hidden in plain sight, a nuclear bomb.
Sounds impossible, right? But here's the twist. California has a law banning nuclear weapons within city limits. This law isn't about daily life or secret nuclear stockpiles. It's largely symbolic, reflecting California's commitment to peace, public safety, and anti-nuclear sentiment. The state wanted to ensure that its cities, dense with civilians and critical infrastructure, remain free from weapons of mass destruction. Past decades ago, during the height of the Cold War, the law was designed to make a statement. California cities refused to host or harbor nuclear weapons, even if federal authorities were involved. It reflects the state's progressive values and strong stance on environmental and human safety issues. Of course, in practical terms, it's impossible for someone to just bring a nuclear weapon into a city. Enforcement is mostly theoretical, but the law exists, and it technically makes the act illegal, no matter how absurd it sounds. So, in California, even if you dream big, nuclear weapons are officially banned in city limits. A law that sounds like science fiction, but it's very real. Safety, peace, and legality rolled into one.
Picture a cozy Maine home. Twinkling lights, shiny ornaments, and a giant Christmas tree still standing proudly. It's January 15th. In Maine, that's a problem. Because there's an old law stating that you can't keep Christmas decorations up after January 14. The rule dates back decades and was originally meant to prevent public nuisances. Towns wanted to avoid homes with rotting trees, tangled lights, and lingering holiday clutter littering neighborhoods well into the new year. In small towns, excessive decorations past the allowed date were considered a distraction or potential fire hazard. Technically, violating the law could result in fines or warnings from local authorities, though today enforcement is extremely rare. Most residents take it more as a friendly tradition than a legal threat, but the law is still on the books. The law is surprisingly specific. It applies to both indoor and outdoor decorations, meaning that even if your lights are still sparkling on January 15th, you're technically breaking Maine law. So in Maine, the holiday spirit has a deadline. Celebrate all you want, but after January 14, it's time to pack away the tinsel, ornaments, and lights. Maine proves that even in the most cheerful season, the law still wants order.
A sunny day in Vermont, a clear lake, and you dive in for a swim. Feeling playful, you decide to whistle underwater. Sounds harmless, right? Not according to Vermont law, because whistling underwater is illegal. Yes, this really exists. The law was part of Vermont's quirky efforts to regulate behavior around public waterways and swimming areas. While it may seem absurd today, the rule was originally intended to prevent disruptions or safety hazards. Whistling underwater can confuse or distract lifeguards, swimmers, or boaters. And in olden times, any unusual noise in public areas could be interpreted as causing a disturbance. Nobody is actively prosecuted for it nowadays, and enforcement is essentially non-existent. But technically, if you whistle underwater in Vermont, you could be breaking the law. It's a reminder that some laws survive long after their practical purpose has faded, leaving us with funny, strange, and completely unexpected rules. So next time you dive into a Vermont lake, remember, splash, swim, float, just don't whistle. Because in Vermont, even underwater, the law is listening.
Imagine walking into a store in Texas and seeing a sign that says, "Eyeballs for sale, only $19.99. Sounds like something out of a horror movie, right? Well, in Texas, selling your eyeballs is illegal. This strange law exists as part of Texas's regulations around human body parts and organ sales. The state, like most of the U.S., prohibits the commercial sale of human organs and tissues to prevent exploitation, black market activity, and serious ethical violations. Eye tissue can only be donated through approved medical channels like eye banks for transplants or research, never for profit. The law is specific, weirdly amusing, and very real. You can give your eyes to science or as a donor, but you cannot sell them. Trying to set up a shady eyeball market would land you in serious legal trouble. It's one of those laws that sounds like a joke, but it highlights a serious principle. Your body parts aren't commodities to be bought and sold. So in Texas, remember, your eyes are priceless, literally and legally. Keep them in your head, donate responsibly, but don't try to make a buck.
Picture this. The sun is blazing over the Arizona desert, cacti casting long shadows, and there's your donkey, curled up and snoozing in your bathtub. Sounds silly? That's because it is, and in Arizona, it's actually illegal. This strange law comes from a real incident in the 1920s. A rancher's donkey used to sleep in a bathtub. One day, a flash flood hit, and the donkey, trapped in the tub, was swept away. Thankfully, the donkey survived, but the event caused enough concern that Arizona lawmakers decided to make bathtub napping donkeys illegal. The law is practical as well as absurd. It prevents animal cruelty, property damage, and potential disasters during floods. Bathtubs aren't meant for livestock, and letting a donkey use one as a bed is considered unsafe and negligent. Today, the law is rarely enforced, but technically, if someone lets their donkey nap in a tub, they could face fines or legal trouble. Arizona's donkey law is one of those perfect examples of how real-life events can inspire bizarre legislation, and why sometimes truth really is stranger than fiction. Lesson learned: in Arizona, donkeys belong in pastures, not porcelain tubs.
Picture a North Carolina farm. Rows of crops stretching under the sun, tractors at work, and somewhere, an elephant ready to plow the fields. Sounds absurd, right? Well, in North Carolina, it's illegal to use elephants for plowing. This bizarre law dates back decades and is rooted in common sense safety and animal welfare concerns. Elephants are enormous, powerful animals, and while they can perform labor, they are not suited for farm work in the same way as horses or oxen. Using them in fields could easily lead to injuries for the animals, the farmers, or anyone nearby. The law also reflects a practical point. Elephants require specialized care, food, and handling. Farming regulations wanted to ensure that livestock and working animals were used safely and responsibly, and elephants simply didn't qualify. Today, the law is mostly historical and rarely cited, but it still exists. So technically, if you tried to harness an elephant to plow your cornfield in North Carolina, you'd be breaking the law. It's one of those perfect, weird laws that makes people laugh, but it also makes sense when you think about safety, practicality, and animal protection. Lesson learned: elephants belong in zoos, circuses, or the wild, not on your farm in North Carolina.
Imagine living in Kentucky, going about your daily life, and suddenly realizing the law says you must take at least one shower a year. Sounds ridiculous, right? But yes, according to a bizarre old statute, Kentuckians were technically required to bathe at least once every 365 days. This law dates back to a time when public health officials were trying to combat disease and improve hygiene in rural communities. Bathing regularly was not just a matter of personal comfort, it was essential for preventing illness. Local governments even codified it into law to encourage cleanliness. Of course, enforcement was practically non-existent, and most people complied voluntarily. Today, the law survives mostly as a humorous footnote
in Kentucky's legal code, cited on lists of the weirdest laws in America. Nobody is being fined for skipping a shower, but technically, the law is still on the books. It's a reminder that hygiene was once considered so serious that failure to bathe could be illegal. So if you're ever in Kentucky and thinking about skipping a shower, remember, technically, the law wants you clean at least once a year. A law that's equal parts practical, historical, and hilariously absurd.
Picture a county fair in Minnesota. Kids laughing, animals everywhere, and a pig race about to start. The twist? The pigs are covered in grease, making them impossible to catch. Sounds fun, right? Not in Minnesota, because it's illegal to grease pigs for competitions. This strange law comes from a combination of animal welfare concerns and public safety. Greasing pigs makes them slippery and difficult to handle, which can lead to injuries for both the animals and the participants. The law ensures that competitions remain safe, fair, and humane. Pigs are surprisingly strong and fast, and adding grease just makes the situation more chaotic. By banning this practice, Minnesota protects children, spectators, and the pigs themselves from unnecessary harm. The law doesn't ban pig races entirely, it just bans the greasing part. Competitions still happen all over the state, but now with proper handling and safety in mind. It's one of those classic, quirky American laws that makes people laugh, but also reflects a serious principle. Even in fun and games, safety and animal welfare come first. So if you're at a Minnesota fair, enjoy the pig races, but leave the grease off the pigs.
Imagine being a monk in China, living a peaceful life and preparing for the ultimate journey, reincarnation. In most places, that's a spiritual matter, personal, private, and mysterious. But in China, if you want to reincarnate, you might need government permission. This law comes from the Regulations on Religious Affairs, which specifically target Tibetan Buddhism. The Chinese government wants to monitor and control the recognition of reincarnated lamas, especially high-ranking ones like the Dalai Lama. Monks must now seek official approval before they can be recognized as a reincarnated spiritual leader. The law is controversial. Critics argue it interferes with centuries-old religious traditions, while the government frames it as a way to prevent fraud and political manipulation in religious practices. Essentially, it's about controlling who can become a religious leader and how. It's one of the strangest intersections of law and spirituality in the modern world, a government regulating the afterlife and rebirth. So in China, reincarnation isn't just a mystical journey, it's a legal process. And before you plan your next life, make sure you've got the paperwork. Spiritual freedom meets bureaucracy in the most unexpected way imaginable.
Imagine cruising through the streets of Moscow or St. Petersburg, your car covered in mud, snow, and road grime from the winter. In most places, people might just laugh or grab a rag. But in some parts of Russia, driving a dirty car is actually illegal. Yes, certain Russian regions have laws requiring vehicles to be kept clean and visible. The rules aren't just about aesthetics, they're about safety and identification. A heavily soiled car can obscure license plates, make it difficult for other drivers to see signals, or even hide traffic violations. Authorities argue that a dirty car could compromise road safety and law enforcement. Violations can result in fines or warnings. The amount depends on how dirty the car is and whether it obstructs identification or traffic safety. In some cities, police actively monitor streets and stop cars that are excessively covered in mud or grime. It sounds absurd to outsiders, but in Russia, a clean car is considered a legal responsibility, not just a personal preference. Drivers are encouraged to wash their vehicles regularly.
especially during harsh winter months when snow and salt can coat every surface. So, if you're driving in Russia, remember, your car isn't just a vehicle, it's a legal obligation to keep it clean. Mud on the bumper? Fines await. Dirt on the plates? Trouble ahead. A quirky law with a serious safety twist. Only in Russia.
Picture the sky over India during Makar Sankranti or another festive season. Colorful kites soaring, tails fluttering, and children laughing as they try to cut each other's strings. It's a scene of pure joy. But here's a twist. In some regions, kite flying without a permit is illegal. This law was introduced mainly in urban areas to prevent accidents, injuries, and property damage. Kites with metal wires or dangerous strings have caused serious accidents in the past, from electrocution when wires touch power lines to injuries from flying blades or falling kites. Some areas even require permits to ensure that kite flying is safe, regulated, and doesn't disrupt traffic or utilities. Authorities monitor popular kite flying zones, and during festivals, police sometimes check permits or enforce safety rules. Violating the law can result in fines or confiscation of kites, especially if the activity endangers people or property. It may sound extreme to outsiders, but the law balances tradition with public safety, preserving the joy of kite flying while preventing avoidable accidents. So next time you see those vibrant kites in India's skies, remember, permission matters. Flying without it could turn a festival of fun into a legal headache. Colorful, festive, and surprisingly regulated.
Imagine living in a place where private sexual behavior could have severe legal consequences. In some regions of Indonesia, particularly under Sharia law in Aceh province, masturbation is considered a criminal act, and the punishment can be as extreme as caning. Aceh is the only province in Indonesia that implements Sharia law fully, and its legal code criminalizes not just adultery or theft, but a range of sexual behaviors deemed immoral, including masturbation. The reasoning behind these laws is rooted in religious and moral codes, aiming to enforce strict social discipline and moral behavior. Violators can face public punishment, including whippings, fines, or imprisonment. The law is controversial, widely criticized by human rights organizations, and viewed as one of the strictest examples of sexual morality enforcement in the modern world. It's important to note that this law is regional, not national. Outside Aceh, masturbation isn't criminalized under Indonesian law. Still, its existence highlights how religious law can intersect with state law in surprising and strict ways. For outsiders, it sounds almost unbelievable. A private act regulated by government decree with harsh corporal punishment attached? But in Aceh, the law is real, enforced, and very serious. A stark reminder that legal systems around the world can regulate even the most personal aspects of human life, and the consequences can be shocking.
Picture this, a circus in Israel, the crowd cheering and a massive bear ready to wrestle with a performer. Sounds like an old-time spectacle? Well, in Israel, it's illegal. Bear wrestling is banned because it's considered cruel and dangerous, both for humans and animals. The law falls under Israel's strict animal welfare regulations, which protect animals from exploitation, abuse, and unnecessary stress. Wrestling a bear isn't just risky, it's abusive, forcing a wild animal into a situation that can harm its health and well-being. Violating this law can result in hefty fines, criminal charges, or confiscation of the animals involved. The ban applies to circuses, private shows, or any event attempting to force animals into dangerous entertainment acts. Israel is known for being progressive in animal rights, and banning bear wrestling is part of a broader effort to prevent cruelty, encourage ethical treatment, and promote humane practices.
So if you ever thought about staging a bear wrestling match in Israel, think again. The law is clear. Entertainment should never come at the expense of safety or animal welfare. A law that's as protective as it is unusual, proving that sometimes the strangest rules exist to save lives, both human and animal.
Imagine getting into your car in Denmark, about to start your engine, when a law suddenly reminds you, check for children underneath your vehicle. It sounds oddly specific, but it's real. Denmark has regulations that require drivers to ensure there are no children or small objects under a car before moving it. The rule is part of the country's broader traffic and safety laws, designed to prevent accidents and protect the most vulnerable. Why is this law necessary? In residential areas, children often play near parked cars. Small children can be hard to see from the driver's seat, and accidents involving cars backing up are tragically common worldwide. Denmark's law makes preventative caution a legal responsibility, not just common sense. Failure to comply can result in fines or liability if an accident occurs. It's less about enforcement from minor negligence and more about promoting proactive safety. This law is a perfect example of Denmark. It's thoughtful, safety-conscious, and sometimes delightfully specific. It might seem strange, but it saves lives. So next time you start your car in Denmark, look under the wheels, check the shadows, and make sure tiny feet aren't in danger. In Denmark, even starting a car is a legal act of care.
Imagine moving to Iceland and dreaming of having a tiny terrarium with a colorful lizard, a turtle, or a slithering snake. Sounds innocent, right? Not in Iceland, because owning these pets is illegal. The law exists primarily to protect Iceland's fragile ecosystem. Iceland has no native reptiles or amphibians, and its isolated environment is extremely sensitive. Introducing non-native species, even as pets, could disrupt local wildlife, spread disease, or threaten biodiversity. A simple turtle in a backyard pond could wreak havoc on native species and delicate habitats. The ban covers turtles, snakes, lizards, and other reptiles or amphibians, but ordinary pets like cats, dogs, birds, and fish are allowed. Violating the law can result in confiscation of the animal and fines, making it clear that Iceland takes ecological protection very seriously. It might sound extreme, but it reflects Iceland's commitment to environmental preservation. In a land famous for glaciers, volcanoes, and unique wildlife, even small creatures must be regulated. So if you're planning a pet in Iceland, think twice before bringing in a turtle or a snake. In Iceland, your dream pet could become a legal problem, all in the name of protecting nature. Cute, exotic, but forbidden.
Imagine taking your dog to the vet in Norway for a routine spay or neuter and discovering it's illegal unless there's a medical reason. In Norway, this law is part of a strict animal welfare framework that treats pets not just as companions, but as living beings with rights. Authorities believe that sterilization should only be done when necessary for health reasons, not convenience or population control. Why? Norwegian lawmakers argue that unnecessary spaying or neutering can affect a dog's natural hormones, behavior, and overall well-being. Dogs, they say, have a right to live with their bodies intact unless a vet determines that a medical condition makes surgery necessary. Violating this law can result in fines, penalties, or legal action, and veterinarians are careful to follow the regulations. The law encourages responsible pet ownership while emphasizing the ethical treatment of animals. It's a law that surprises many visitors, especially those from countries where spaying and neutering is routine. But in Norway, the message is clear. Pets aren't just property. They deserve care, respect, and protection.
So, if you own a dog in Norway, remember, your vet needs a medical reason before performing any sterilization procedure. It's law, it's ethical, and it's very Norwegian.
Imagine getting pulled over for speeding in Finland, and instead of a fixed fine, the ticket depends on how much money you make. This isn't a joke. Finland calculates certain traffic fines, especially for speeding, using a system called day fines. The idea is simple. The penalty should be proportional to your income, so it's fair whether you're a millionaire or a minimum wage worker. For example, in 2002, a Finnish businessman famously received a 116,000 euro fine for driving 80 kph over the limit. To him, it felt as serious as it would to anyone else because the system ensures that speeding hurts equally regardless of wealth. The system is designed to deter dangerous behavior effectively. Someone with a lot of money might not feel a standard fine, but a day fine based on income ensures everyone takes the law seriously. It's about equality and enforcement, not punishment for punishment's sake. So, in Finland, breaking the speed limit isn't just risky for your safety, it can cost you a fortune depending on your paycheck. A law that's equal parts clever, fair, and terrifying for fast drivers. Drive carefully, your wallet will thank you.
Imagine walking into a Polish playground and spotting a cheerful Winnie the Pooh statue. You'd think it's harmless, right? Wrong. In some Polish towns, Winnie the Pooh is banned from playgrounds. Why? Local authorities claim that the beloved bear is inappropriately dressed, wearing nothing but a tiny red shirt. Officials argued that this made him sexually suggestive for children and therefore unsuitable for public play areas. The controversy started in 2008, when parents and local councils debated whether such imagery was appropriate. The ban sparked national and international headlines because, let's face it, a cuddly cartoon bear causing a legal stir is pretty unusual. Critics laughed at the decision, while supporters argued it was about protecting children from sexualized imagery, however minor it seemed. In practice, the law didn't criminalize ownership or media, it simply restricted displays in public playgrounds. It's one of those quirks where cultural perception and law collide in the most unexpected way. So, in Poland, the next time you see Winnie the Pooh, remember, he might be fine on your bookshelf, but in some playgrounds, he's off limits. A children's classic, controversially censored.
Imagine walking through a Romanian city and spotting a pigeon painted bright blue, pink, or neon green. Cute? Maybe. Legal? Absolutely not. Because in Romania, dyeing your pigeon without a permit is illegal. This unusual law is part of Romania's broader animal welfare regulations, designed to protect birds from harm. Dyeing a pigeon without permission can be considered cruel, as chemicals or improper handling could injure the bird or affect its health. The permit system ensures that any coloring is safe, controlled, and approved by authorities. The law also exists to prevent illegal pigeon racing or exotic exhibitions, where owners might try to modify birds for competitive advantage or show purposes. Authorities want to ensure that pigeons remain healthy, naturally colored, and unexploited. Violating the law can result in fines or confiscation of the bird. So while painting your pigeon might sound like harmless fun, in Romania, it's serious business. A law that's strange, specific, and very protective, proving that in some countries, even pigeons have legal rights. Colorful imagination? Yes. Legal without permission? Absolutely not.
Imagine welcoming a new baby into your family in New Zealand and proudly announcing their name, Lucifer, or maybe Queen.
Sounds bold, right? But in New Zealand, both of these names and a few others are illegal. New Zealand has strict naming laws overseen by the Department of Internal Affairs. The rules are designed to protect children from harm, embarrassment, or offensive names. Names that could be deemed obscene, offensive, or likely to cause distress are automatically rejected. That's why Lucifer, Queen, or names with symbols and numbers often get denied. Officials review each name for potential emotional or social impact, and parents are sometimes asked to choose an alternative if the name is controversial. The law isn't about limiting creativity. It's about ensuring the child's well-being in society. There have been cases where parents tried to circumvent the rules with unusual spellings or hyphenations, but the authorities remained vigilant. New Zealand takes the responsibility of naming seriously. So in New Zealand, the next time you think of giving your child a striking or unique name, remember, creativity is welcome, but Lucifer and Queen are off limits. A law that's protective, sensible, and unexpectedly strict.
Imagine a married couple in the Philippines facing irreconcilable differences and wanting to end their marriage legally. In most countries, divorce would be the solution. But in the Philippines, divorce is still illegal, with very few exceptions. The Philippines is one of the only countries in the world with this restriction, largely due to the influence of the Catholic Church and the country's cultural and religious values. Marriage is considered a lifelong commitment, and the law reflects this belief. Instead of divorce, couples must seek annulment or legal separation, which are complicated, lengthy, and often expensive processes. Annulment proves that the marriage was invalid from the start, while legal separation allows spouses to live apart without dissolving the marriage legally. Unlike divorce, these options don't allow remarriage. This law has led to frustration for many Filipinos, especially those in abusive or incompatible marriages. Social debates about legalizing divorce have been ongoing for decades, but change has been slow. So in the Philippines, ending a marriage legally isn't simple. It's a rare, difficult, and highly regulated process. Divorce might be common elsewhere, but here, the law says marriage is forever. A law rooted in tradition, religion, and the belief that some bonds aren't meant to be broken.
Imagine walking into a store in Saudi Arabia on February 14th and finding no chocolates, no roses, no cards, nothing for Valentine's Day. For years, that was reality. In Saudi Arabia, Valentine's Day products were banned, and selling or promoting them could land shop owners in trouble. The authorities viewed the holiday as contrary to Islamic values, seeing it as a foreign celebration promoting romance outside the bounds of religious teachings. The ban applied to stores, malls, and even small vendors. Displaying heart-shaped gifts, greeting cards, or red roses was considered inappropriate and sometimes punishable by fines. Many shops simply avoided stocking Valentine's items, while others found creative ways to sell gifts under the radar. Interestingly, in recent years, enforcement has relaxed somewhat, with some products appearing discreetly in stores. But the legacy of the ban remains a reminder of how culture, religion, and law intersect. So, in Saudi Arabia, Valentine's Day was not just a matter of taste, it was regulated by law, proving that love sometimes comes with legal restrictions. A law where hearts are literally off-limits in public commerce. Imagine sending a text in the UAE, a harmless message to a friend, but you include a curse word or even an emoji that implies swearing. Sounds casual? Not in the United Arab Emirates. In the UAE, swearing, insulting, or using offensive language online or in person is illegal. This includes social media posts, emails, messages, and even emojis that convey offensive meanings. Authorities take such behavior seriously, and violations can result in fines, deportation for foreigners, or even jail time. The law is part of the UAE's strict approach to public morality and social harmony. Officials argue that offensive language and online abuse can disturb public order, damage reputations, and create social unrest, so even seemingly minor actions are criminalized. This isn't limited to obvious profanity. Context matters. An emoji like a middle finger, an angry face, or any symbol used to insult someone could fall under the law. People have been prosecuted for offensive online posts or private messages, making it clear that nothing is truly private online. So in the UAE, words and even symbols carry serious consequences. Think twice before texting, posting, or emojiing. A law that proves communication is not just casual. In some countries, it's highly regulated.
Imagine traveling to Qatar and thinking of bringing along some bacon or ham for your personal stash. Sounds harmless, right? Not in Qatar, because importing pork is strictly illegal. Qatar is an Islamic country, and pork is considered haram or forbidden under Islamic law. The government enforces strict regulations to ensure that pork products don't enter the country, whether for personal use, sale, or distribution. Violating these rules can lead to confiscation, fines, or even legal action. The ban isn't just about religious observance. It's also about public health and compliance. Airports, ports, and borders have strict checks, and customs officers actively monitor for prohibited items. Travelers often get warnings in advance, and some airlines even restrict carrying pork in checked luggage. While Qatar allows a wide variety of other imported foods, pork remains off-limits. Residents and visitors are expected to respect local culture and laws, even in seemingly minor matters like what you bring in your luggage. So in Qatar, your breakfast habits may need to change drastically. Bacon and ham? Not welcome. A law that's strict, culturally rooted, and non-negotiable, proving that some foods are more than just diet choices, they're legal matters.
Imagine uploading a funny video online in Egypt, poking fun at a government official or politician. Seems harmless, right? Not in Egypt, because mocking officials online is illegal. Egyptian law criminalizes content that insults public officials, institutions, or state symbols, whether it's posted on social media, shared via messaging apps, or streamed online. Even satire, parody, or memes can be interpreted as offensive. Violations can result in fines, imprisonment, or both, depending on the severity of the offense. The law is part of Egypt's broader effort to control online speech and maintain public order, especially in a digital age where content spreads rapidly. Authorities monitor social media closely, and dozens of people have been prosecuted for online posts, videos, or jokes that are deemed insulting. It's a law that surprises many outsiders, because what might seem like harmless humor elsewhere can be treated as a serious crime in Egypt. Even indirect jokes or exaggerated satire could land someone in legal trouble. So in Egypt, think twice before posting. The internet is not a free space for mocking officials. A viral laugh could quickly turn into legal trouble. A law where humor meets heavy-handed regulation, and the consequences are very real.
Imagine having a cute little penguin waddling around your backyard in South Africa. Adorable, right? But here's the catch. You can't just keep a penguin as a pet. You need a permit. South Africa is home to species like the African penguin, which are protected under national wildlife laws. These laws are designed to prevent illegal trade, exploitation, and harm to vulnerable species. Penguins are wild animals, and taking one from the wild or keeping it without authorization can threaten conservation efforts. Obtaining a permit involves proving that you can provide a safe, suitable environment and that the penguin won't be exploited or endangered. Authorities strictly regulate ownership to ensure that penguins are kept ethically and responsibly. Without a permit, keeping one is illegal and punishable with fines or confiscation. This law highlights South Africa's focus on protecting wildlife while balancing human interaction with nature. Penguins might be charming, but in South Africa, they're not just pets, they're protected creatures. So, if you ever dream of a pet penguin, remember, cute waddles don't trump the law. A permit is a must. A rule that's quirky, specific, and all about conservation over cuddles.
Imagine going to a store in Kenya and reaching for a plastic bag, only to discover that they're completely banned. No exceptions. Kenya has some of the strictest plastic bag laws in the world. Introduced in 2017, the ban was designed to tackle severe environmental pollution. Plastic bags were clogging rivers, littering streets, and harming wildlife. Turtles, birds, and marine animals often died after ingesting discarded plastic. Violating the law isn't a small offense. Businesses and individuals caught producing, selling, or using plastic bags can face hefty fines or even jail time. The government has enforced the ban aggressively, making Kenya a global example of environmental enforcement. Shoppers now rely on reusable bags, paper alternatives, or biodegradable materials. The law is strict, but it's effective. Streets, rivers, and natural habitats are cleaner, and wildlife is safer. So, in Kenya, if you thought a plastic bag was harmless, think again. Carry your own bag or face serious consequences. A law that's extreme, eco-friendly, and a powerful reminder. In some countries, environmental protection is enforced with teeth.
Imagine taking out a notebook in Tanzania, drawing a map of your city or neighborhood, and suddenly realizing that what you're doing could break the law. In Tanzania, creating or publishing maps without government permission is illegal. The law is designed to protect national security, sensitive locations, and strategic information. Authorities want to ensure that maps, whether printed, digital, or shared publicly, don't reveal military sites, infrastructure, or other locations that could pose a security risk if misused. This regulation applies to individuals, companies, and even journalists. If you create maps for public use, you must obtain official approval, or you could face fines, confiscation of materials, or even legal prosecution. While it might sound extreme to outsiders, the law reflects Tanzania's approach to information control and national safety. Unauthorized mapping could unintentionally expose critical areas to espionage, terrorism, or other threats. So in Tanzania, cartography isn't just an academic hobby, it's a regulated activity, and getting permission is mandatory. A law that turns something as simple as drawing a map into a potential legal minefield.
Imagine posting a critical comment about the monarchy on social media in Morocco. In many countries, this would be considered free speech, but in Morocco, criticizing the king is illegal. Moroccan law protects the monarchy under strict rules. Any speech, writing, or online content deemed insulting to the king or the royal family can lead to serious legal consequences, including fines, imprisonment, or both. This applies to public statements, social media posts, articles, and even private communications if authorities deem them threatening or offensive. The law reflects the king's central role in Morocco's government, society, and culture. Authorities argue that maintaining respect for the monarchy is essential for national stability and unity. Violations are treated seriously, and several high-profile cases have shown that both citizens and foreigners can be prosecuted. It's a stark reminder that in some countries, freedom of speech has clear limits, especially when it comes to leadership. A joke, critique, or satirical post could have real legal consequences.
So, in Morocco, think carefully before commenting on the king. Words that seem harmless elsewhere can become criminal offenses here. A law that merges tradition, authority, and legal enforcement, showing the weight of monarchy in modern Morocco.
Imagine walking down a street in Argentina and seeing a sign, "Magical healing for all illnesses." It might sound intriguing, but selling such services is illegal. Argentine law prohibits offering medical treatments that claim miraculous or magical healing powers without scientific proof. This includes psychic healing, unverified potions, or rituals claiming to cure diseases. Authorities want to protect people from fraud, false hope, and potential health risks. The law is rooted in consumer protection and public health. Individuals who mislead others with unproven treatments can face fines, lawsuits, or even criminal charges. This ensures that medical claims are based on evidence, science, and proper regulation. It's not about banning alternative therapies entirely. Many complementary treatments are allowed, but claiming magical or guaranteed healing crosses the legal line. Even flamboyant claims like cures cancer overnight or removes all illness magically can get someone in trouble. So in Argentina, if you dream of selling mystical remedies, beware. Words alone can land you in legal hot water. A law that protects people from deception while showing that sometimes magic is strictly for fantasy, not for business.
Imagine a parent in Chile letting their child skip school for a week, thinking it's no big deal. In Chile, it is a big deal because parents can actually be fined if their children don't attend school. Chilean law mandates compulsory education for children, and parents are legally responsible for ensuring their kids go to school. If a child is repeatedly absent without valid justification, authorities can impose fines on the parents and take steps to enforce attendance. The law exists to guarantee that every child has access to basic education, prevent truancy, and promote long-term social and economic development. Education isn't just optional, it's a legal requirement, and parents are accountable. While enforcement usually starts with warnings, fines can escalate for chronic absenteeism. The system emphasizes parental responsibility and the societal value of education. So in Chile, skipping school isn't just a problem for kids, it's a legal issue for parents too. A law that underscores the importance of education, accountability, and ensuring that no child misses out on learning.
Imagine going out for dinner in Bolivia and ordering a second glass of wine, only to realize that as a married woman, you're technically breaking the law. This unusual law stems from older Bolivian regulations aimed at controlling public behavior and promoting social decorum. Married women were historically expected to drink modestly in public settings, and exceeding a single glass of wine was considered improper or scandalous. The law reflects cultural attitudes of the time, linking public drinking, gender roles, and social expectations. While rarely enforced today, it remains a curious legal artifact, a reminder of how societal norms once influenced legislation in very specific ways. Men weren't restricted in the same way, and the law primarily targeted women's public behavior rather than safety or health concerns. It's one of those laws that sounds almost absurd now, but was taken seriously when it was enacted. So in Bolivia, historically, married women had to sip carefully in public, one glass only. A law that's quirky, gender-specific, and a window into cultural history.
Imagine stepping into the shower at school in Colombia, phone in hand, ready to check messages or scroll social media. Sounds harmless? Not in some Colombian schools, because bringing your phone into the shower is illegal.
The law is part of school regulations designed to protect students' privacy and safety. Shower areas are considered private, and phones can be used to take inappropriate photos or videos, leading to harassment, bullying, or even criminal charges. By banning phones in showers, schools aim to prevent violations of personal privacy and maintain a safe environment. While enforcement varies, students caught with phones in showers can face detentions, confiscation, or other disciplinary measures. The rule isn't about punishing curiosity, it's about protecting minors and preventing abuse. It's one of those very specific laws that sounds funny at first, but addresses real concerns in the age of smartphones. So, in some Colombian schools, remember, the shower is phone-free territory. Privacy matters more than selfies. A law that's strange, specific, and surprisingly forward-thinking.
Imagine walking into a government office in South Sudan, hat on your head, ready to handle paperwork, and being technically breaking the law. In South Sudan, it's illegal to wear hats inside government buildings. The rule is rooted in tradition and respect, emphasizing deference to authority and official spaces. Wearing a hat indoors, especially in formal settings, is considered disrespectful or inappropriate, and the law formalizes this social norm. The ban applies to all government offices, including administrative centers and courts. Visitors are expected to remove hats before entering, signaling politeness and recognition of the authority of the space. Enforcement is usually cultural rather than strict, but the law gives officials the legal backing to maintain decorum. It's one of those laws where etiquette meets legislation, a reminder that in some countries, tradition is backed by legal force. So, in South Sudan, before entering a government building, take off your hat. Respect isn't just expected, it's the law. A quirky, respectful, and culturally grounded rule that shows how clothing can carry legal weight.